When we are live.
Well, Linda, let me mention that it doesn't appear we have a quorum right now. Oh, we do. I'm sorry. I take that back. We got 3.
We have
Just
4.
count.
We're missing 1.
I see Russ, Valerie, and yourself. I don't
And
see
Suzanne.
I don't see Suzanne on my screen. So, okay.
Okay, you just have to go to the gallery view.
Okay.
She's there.
Okay, we are live and we are recording.
Oh, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our March regular council meeting. It's a beautiful day today, and it won't be long till our first official day of spring. So thank you for joining us this evening. I want to also let you know who else is on the Zoom call with me, and also for those of you at home that are just listening in to know who will be speaking. Joining me, I have Councilperson Suzanne Souter, Councilperson Russell Smith, Councilperson Valerie Leary. We do expect Councilperson Michael Platt to join soon. He's having some technical difficulties. And we have also our city admin and also our mayor, Mike Caranta, and Janet Carlin, our city treasurer, and Brian Whitaker, our city clerk. We also have our city administrator, Bill Barthel, our Daniel Lasco, our city solicitor, Chief McCabe, our chief of police, Jeff Bergstrom, our building official, and we have our host of the meeting is Kim Bergmuller, our council secretary, and also we have Kathy Werrick, who is the stenographer for this meeting. So welcome. As part of our discussions this evening, we'll have Pam Patone, who's the general manager of the MSC. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting, and the first thing would be the minutes. And also Mr. Platt has joined us. So he has joined us. The minutes for February 9th, regular meeting, February 16th, special meeting. Are there any comments on these minutes?
Madam President, I just got one comment. When I was talking about the mail, I wasn't talking about so much being on the mass mailing list. I was concerned that our address was coming up historic new CADE. And I'd like that to be reflected in the records.
What page?
That's what I was talking about, professional licenses, driver's license, and registrations.
I would appreciate it if you would send me examples, Mike. All I've seen is one registration, and still waiting to hear from Jenna Kemp. She talked to me last week and said she was having a meeting with folks who handle their digital entry.
Well, correct, but I showed you an example last month.
One. You mentioned several. I've only seen one related to registration.
I've talked to other people that their registration came like that, and my daughter's unemployment came like that. Can I have the tripod?
Well, could you please send me examples?
Okay, Mr. Smith and Mr. Platt, if you would take this offline, that would be good. I think it's good to share examples. So we have one change to the minutes.
I have nothing else to say. So conversation's over.
Anything else? Anyone would like to comment on the minutes?
Excuse me, this is Kathy. Was that the regular meeting or the special meeting, Mr. Platt?
That was a regular meeting,
Thank you.
February 9th.
Okay. Do you need anything else, Ms. Rurik? For the minute? Okay. All those in favor of approving the regular meeting minutes and from February 9th, the February 16th special meeting minutes as modified, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the minutes have been approved. At this point, I'd like to ask our treasurer, Janet Carlin, to come forth.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Thank you. This report is the unaudited report as of February 28th, 2021. The unrestricted funds are $5,853,654.92. Total restricted funds, $472,200. $226.12. Total cash in the accounts, $6,325,881.04.
Any questions for Ms. Carlin?
Suzanne Sauter here. I just have one. I noticed a couple of items have from 119 to 190% of the budgeted amount under public safety, for example, maintenance contracts and office supplies. And there were some other ones in other categories under mayor and council. And they seem to be COVID-related items, and I just want to clarify.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch those.
I'm sorry. There were several items in both mayor and council and public safety that were way over budget. They appear to be COVID-related. And I noticed.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yes.
On page 9, under the grant report, we're getting some money, the money for the grants from the COVID relief. And I just wanted to clarify, is that, meant to cover those excess items?
I'm not sure. I'll have to research that for you.
I can address that, Madam, Ms. Sauter. I believe that is correct. I believe those are as a result of COVID, but I certainly can, look up. I can get you the exact information tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure that's as a result of the COVID purchases we've made.
I thought that was probably the case, but just wanted to be sure. Thank you,
Sure.
Bill and Ms. Carter.
Sure.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report for this month, unaudited as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion, Ms. Leary, second.
Second.
Second from Mr. Smith. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed. Okay, the treasurer's report has been approved unanimously. Let's go to the city administrator and staff reports.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. I have 2 items for council tonight. Number 1 is just a quick update on the Delaware Street paving, the completion of the paving, and we're shooting, as I discussed with Mr. Smith yesterday, we're hoping to have that completed by the middle of April. In a conversation I had this morning with Jeff, he re-emphasized the fact that obviously that will be weather dependent. So we are hoping middle of April, but it could be anywhere between the middle of April and the middle of May, depending on the weather. The other thing I wanted just to bring to council's attention, as you all recall, I'm sure that, about 6 months or so ago, we went into a partnership with the trustees for the Newcastle Housing Assistance Program. To date, we have not had any projects that have come to fruition. Recently, we had a situation with a resident who, without getting too much in the details with this resident, I expect or suspect, I should say, that this person might meet the criteria if we broadened it. Well, I think absolutely would meet the criteria if we broadened the criteria for other purposes. And so I reached out to Pete Toner from the trustees, and he and I had a discussion about it last week. And he is all in favor of us looking at possibly, as I said, expanding the things we can do for the residents who may or may not be able to afford, or who may not be able to afford certain repairs on their homes. So in the conversation I had with Pete, what I basically explained to him was my thoughts on it was that I think it'd be a good idea if we had a representative from council, the mayor, myself, and a representative from the trustees, or a couple of representatives, so that we can get together and reevaluate the program. And it may come to a point where this committee meets for certain applications. I don't think it's something that, and we kind of talked about this when the program was originally created, that it should be a decision that I should make singularly, or someone on my staff should make. But I think together with the folks I just mentioned, or a group of folks like I just mentioned, we can expand the program and maybe offer more of the program to residents in need. So I'm just bringing that to council's attention. My recommendation would be that of course, the trustees start with new folks April 1. And of course, we have a new council coming up, a couple new members next month. So my recommendation would be to wait till all of those folks, new folks are in place with the trustees and new folks are in place with the council. And then at that point, put together this group of folks who I think would be good for that purpose. So just put that, out in front of everyone, and hopefully it's something that, you're in favor of.
Mr. Barthel, can you just give an example without giving too much away?
Of what?
Like the need to expand it.
Yeah, sure. We have a situation with a resident who we've cited because there have been code violations. Parts of the exterior siding have been blown off. And after citing this person, we were told, basically, we received an email. I think actually the council president received an email with concern about the ability to fix these problems. That's why I said I don't have a whole lot more information other than that. And other than from the information that was sent to the council president, I suspect that there are income issues that would, and other things that this person is faced. But anyway, so that caused me to go ahead, or that precipitated me to go ahead and talk to Mr. Toner and say, let's really try to evaluate this and look at it from another perspective, because since the time we put it into place, we haven't had one actually solid application from, so anyway, that's kind of the situation I'm referring to.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions from me? Okay, if not, Jeff, you have anything for council? You're muted. You're muted, Jeff.
You're still muted.
How's that? Better?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Just to remind everyone that there's an emergency sewer repair going on at the top end of the Strand, and the Strand will be closed tomorrow and perhaps Thursday. We put some kind of a flyer out at the very last minute. We didn't find about this out until the end of the workday. So anybody that's got a friend on the Strand and wants to tell them to move their car tonight or early in the morning before 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, that would make their lives easier.
Okay.
And Mr. Bergstrom, does everyone need to move their car off the Strand, or just not be able, if they
No.
don't want to drive tomorrow, they could leave it?
They could certainly leave their car there. They certainly will be able to back up the Strand, I bet, but that's kind
tough.
of that's a tough drive.
Well, I thank the city for getting out the notices so quickly. Anything else?
Nope.
All right, Chief.
Good evening. I just have a few things for council. First, our monthly report came out. We were able to add quality of life complaints. Hopefully you saw that. Doesn't look like it used to under the O program, but it still sends pretty much the same message. The one issue that we did want to address is there was a robbery that was investigated. We didn't have a lot of information, but our detectives did a lot of work, and although an arrest hasn't been made, we've identified a suspect and there are warrants for him. I'm going to leave it at that because we're actively looking for him. We're still in the range of about 30 or so quality of life calls a month, with the anticipation that that's going to rise with warm weather, folks coming out of their homes for the first time in a long time. We are expecting that, and I think we got a little taste of it today. We had some crowds down in the park and some traffic. So I just want to remind folks that when you're witnessing criminal acts, even if it's a quality of life call, 911 is the best way to go. I know people are, they have a tendency to reach out to local representatives, elected officials. That's going to cause a break in the chain, and it's not necessarily an effective way of getting a police response. So, you're going to see an increase in our presence. We're at about the 71% either immunized or infected. So we're getting close to where we're all back to work. We haven't had any exposures in a while. Everybody's healthy, so you should see us a little bit more than you're used to, and so hopefully that helps curb any of these quality of life issues. But we just encourage folks to continue to call 911. We recently applied. Before I jump into that, I don't know if anybody has questions about the monthly report or.
Chief, just a quick question. What is, if someone's hesitant about dialing 911, what's the response if they call the non-emergency number at the county, not the station?
Right. So just between you and me, it's the same place.
Well, it is, but
They're
that
gonna
might
hit,
make somebody, I did
Yeah.
dispatching for a while in medic school, but I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if it might encourage people more to call
Well-
if they feel it's a non-emergency number.
yeah, no, and that's a great point. And that it is addressed on our website. And I know I talk about this website a lot, but I would really like to see more people hit that and get, a better picture of what it looks like. It's still protocol. It still goes to the same location and you're still going to be asked questions that you probably don't think are relevant or a little bit frustrating to go through, but it is very important for safety reasons that we have as much information as possible. So, yeah, I mean, you just apply that level of everybody has a different standard of what an emergency is, but for the most part, I think we can all agree if somebody's getting hurt, property's being damaged, you're witnessing it, that's the time to jump in. Quality of life stuff, that's the non-emergency stuff.
Is the standard the same throughout Newcastle County? I'd always heard, you don't touch 911 unless there's something very serious happening. And, here it just seems like 911 is almost a regular call and it goes to the same place. I don't
So
quite.
The standard is to get an emergency response. That's the route to go. If you want to just report conduct, after the fact, I mean, that's something that we can look into. But, sometimes when people call they call directly into the department and they'll say, hey, last night I saw 3 people walking down the street at 3 a.m. It looked like they're trying car door handles. That may not seem like an emergency, but that it certainly warrants a 911 call. So yeah, it is. I mean, we encourage the use for in progress type of complaints. If you need the response, that's the route to take. What we're trying to do away from is, harassing elected officials and city administrators to say, hey, this is happening. What are you going to do about it? Which leads to somebody is going to have to call 911. If I'm sitting by the pool on a Friday night and I get a text, hey, there's something in progress, I'm going to be the one calling 911. So I'm certainly not going to dispatch my officers in the blind, right? I'll relay as much information as I can. When it goes over the air, it alerts all the agencies that are in this area. And again, I've used this analogy. We were dispatched to an abandoned vehicle that ended up being a stolen vehicle that was used at a shooting. That information, because it went over the air, once the vehicle was described, another unit miles from here said, hey, let that guy go into that call. No, that car may have been used in a shooting. So all these things kind of play into it. And that's why we really are, pushing this. And it's not just the city of Newcastle. So. I hope that answers.
This is Council President Ratchford. Chief, would you just summarize what you'd ask people to do? Call 911 in any case there's any concern. How would you describe it?
Yeah, if you need an immediate response, if you want an officer to respond immediately, call 911. If you've got information that you think that we should know about that we may or may not respond to, then you can call the non-emergency. Like I said, they all go to the same center, but and their protocol. But certainly 911 calls have the get the priority. But if you're not sure, there's no harm in doing it. The people that call 911 because their child isn't brushing their teeth. That's where we run into the issue.
Yeah, I think we may have the opposite problem. So
yeah, we do. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The other issue
Thank you.
is, I'm sorry, did I cut you off, sir?
No, I just said thank you.
Okay. We recently applied for a position to have a trainer get trained through a new program that Georgetown University is implementing called ABLE. It's an acronym for Active Bystandership in Law Enforcement. The Georgetown alum is happy. And we've applied, and thanks to a well-written a letter by the mayor and the Lions Club and Attack Addiction. We were required to prove that, we have some community support, some of the initiatives that we're taking here. We had to commit to 10 standards that I committed to in a letter that I drafted. And so we were approved shortly after we applied. So at some point, we're going to have somebody from this agency trained. We can come back and train our officers in this active bystandership. And in a nutshell, what it is, as I said last month, our use of force policy or response to resistance policy has been federally certified, indicating that we meet standards. One of those standards in a use of force policy is to have a duty to intervene. The duty to intervene is for an example, if an officer witnesses another officer using excessive force, the second officer has a duty under a policy to intervene, which all makes sense until you move that kind of philosophy into an organization that has a hierarchy. So today, as I talked to our officers and in service, I said, this analogy applies to if you witness me using excessive force and you're a young officer, you may be less inclined to intervene. We have a policy that requires him to intervene, and then I'm going to have language in a new code of conduct that we're going to push out soon that prohibits retaliation, and it's going to have a severe penalty associated with it. So that if I were to use my authority to retaliate against the officer that intervened, then I'm violating the code of conduct and subject to penalty. So the idea behind all this is there's psychology behind this that and I haven't taken this class yet, so I don't want to claim that I have all the facts. But what I found interesting was the psychology behind all this was they were looking for inhibitors that or reasons why people weren't intervening, and it was, from what I understand, pretty interesting stuff. Any agency that has taken this class has raved about it, and this really it started in a police department in New Orleans where they recognized internally that they had an issue, and it's kind of manifested itself into this. So we're excited to be part of that program, and I look forward to talking about it more once we get to that point. And then that's all I have if we don't have any questions.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Chief, for everything that you do. Okay, the next item we have is council communications.
I have several things, but if anybody else has anything, they can go first.
You're first.
Oh, great, thank you. I just want to give a congratulations out to another new business here in town, which is Zach's Grill. They opened up on Monday at 10 a.m. with some limited hours. They're going to be trying lunch and dinner first before they maybe expand into breakfast, but it's always a really good thing when we get a new business going in town. The David Finney Inn Booth House, and of course the coffee shop over the next, hopefully just limited to a couple months, will also be opening. So that's let's get on hand. We'll be on hand for that one. Opening night, I always like to go to those dinners. I've received several compliments from employees at the courthouse, as well as other people on the street, about the trash cans. They look great. It's such an improvement over the ones that we had before. It was disappointing to hear that A Day in Old Newcastle was canceled again this year. The original plan, I was on the committee, was to have it go forward, but after speaking with the state and finding out all the regulations, at this time, they're limited to 250 people in a public gathering, along with the other regulations and such that have come along with masking and social distancing and cleaning the bathrooms, and would cost them more money than they would bring in, which is not going to help our nonprofits. So they had to cancel it again. I don't know how that's going to affect Separation Day. The regulations may change. I don't know how much pre-planning is going on. I don't know what's going on with Separation Day. And I was happy to read that the concerts will be going on in the summer. So we still have that going. I did receive a telephone call from Rod Miller on East 3rd Street, wanting to request East 3rd between Harmony and Chestnut Street to be striped to identify parking spots. I did forward this request on, and I've asked for it to be on the agenda for next month with a discussion on why not it might not work. Like if you stripe the street, you may lose parking spots because of the rules that go along with when you stripe. And whatever those facts are, that evidence, we can look at it and have it reviewed by, I think, Jeff, maybe, are you the one who might be doing that? And bring that to us so it can identify and kind of put to rest whether or not that would actually work. That's all.
I've got a couple things, just little ones. The wayfinding signs are in, and I've talked to Bill about installation. The ones on Delaware will have to, wait a bit until the new paving is in, but I think we can start getting the other ones into place. And as far as electric vehicles, it seems that the future is now. And that they were always future cars, but all of a sudden Volvo is switching over in 10 years, GM in 15, and people right now have a lot of electric cars. So that's an issue that is going to be facing us, and Councilwoman Leary has pointed that out, and I hope she'll continue to serve as council's point person on that issue.
That did, excuse me, that did remind me that I had asked the Planning Commission and HAC to meet on this or get together on this and bring us a rough draft. Of course, it takes longer than anything, but to bring us a rough outline or a rough draft by the April meeting. And as it turns out, the Planning Commission were actually already meeting on this, and it is on the next agenda for HAC. So.
Madam President, if I may, for 1 second, just a note on that.
Please do.
Okay, we have a meeting tomorrow at the community room at the police station, Pam. And I think Scott Bloomquist is going to be there, and there will be a representative from HAC and a representative from the Planning Commission. So just to kind of piggyback on what you just said, Mrs. Leary. So that is moving forward.
I wish I could be there, but I work.
No, that's great news. I think it's a very important topic, and we need, the ability for some community charging and like lots or certain locations throughout the city. And then I think we're going to have to also address more electric vehicles on the streets that are attached to residences without off-street parking. So I think that's a great thing to do. So thank you.
One more thing, and I haven't asked if Mr. Smith is available tomorrow. He may not be. If he would be able to attend that meeting, but if you're not available, we'll just have to get the minutes, I guess. So
What time and where, Bill?
10 o'clock at the police station.
Oh, during the day. I have a, no, I don't. The Zoom meeting is 2. No, my Zoom meeting's at 10. I'm sorry, I can't make it.
Okay.
Is that going to be Zoomed, that meeting?
No.
No, okay.
Okay, anyone else from council?
I have a few, Madam President.
Okay, Mr. Platt.
I would like to recognize Master Sergeant Bernie Torrey. From what I understand, I saw on Facebook this week, after 27 and a half years of service to the city, that he's going to be officially hanging up his uniform. And I think we should all wish him luck and good health for the rest of his retirement. He served the city quite well. Never heard a bad word about him.
Shame on me, sir. That was a topic that should have led off. We're going to do a walkout for Sergeant Torrey on Friday morning at 10:15.
Okay, great.
That'd be great. We'll have a very short ceremony with him. We'll do something later when we get, all the stuff in that we give him. That's usually off campus kind of an off-campus kind of celebration, but it would mean a lot if anybody could make that. And thank you for bringing that up. I apologize for getting
What time was that again?
Friday at 10:15.
Yeah, so I think he spent 30 years in uniform, probably the same as you. I think he spent 4 years in the Marine Corps and then 27 and a half with the city. So that's pretty nice. Chief, why I got you, this question is going to be directed at you, I guess. I've gotten complaints from residents and they may have talked to staff, so Mr. Berthel may be aware of this, may not be. About people who move into a neighborhood or move into the city, buy a house and never change their car registration. What is the procedure? What is the law as far as that goes? When is there a state law saying you have to register your car within an amount of time or not?
There is a state law that requires both the license and the registration. One is 30, the other is 60. I forget which is which.
Do we enforce that?
So typically we would trip over that on a stop if we were able to show that we could articulate that we know that it hasn't been changed. But I will tell you this, that especially in light of all the COVID stuff, we have not made any administrative arrests, for lack of a better word, so that folks, because we recognize people are having a hard time getting to DMV. DMV was, kind of had reduced staff. So we're coming out of it a little bit, but it's also, that's not something that would be a primary reason to conduct a traffic stop.
Okay, yeah, because one of my neighbors actually gave me a list of things and a list of cars in this neighborhood, and I kind of told him, talk to you or the administrator. So
that wouldn't be a proactive type of enforcement.
Okay, fair enough. That's all I had.
Okay.
Isn't there an extension on some of this? Because people can't go down to the DMV or anything?
So the only guidance we have is from DOJ to say, and DMV to not make these write these administrative tickets. So we've just not done. Now, if it's been egregious and it's involved in a crash and there's no insurance, then obviously we've got to do what we have to do. But
Suzanne Souter here. Two issues. One, now that we're getting the new trash cans, which I agree look great, could some of the older ones in better shape be placed on South Street near the tennis courts and perhaps on 3rd Street extended next to or near the Progressive Club or on that empty lot? There's lots of people using that area, especially as the weather improves and more people are in the park, and they get frustrated and throw their trash on the ground because there's no place else to put it. And those locations would be on the trash truck route anyway, so I don't see that it would add significantly to the time for collection.
Yes, we can look at that, Ms. Souter.
Great, thank you, Mr. Bartel.
Sure.
And one other issue, I had a call from someone who lives on West 5th Street next to a boarded up property. 73 is the boarded property. And he said that there's broken glass on the roof, which of course in the wind blows down onto his property. They share a common wall, so that causes problems. The roof of the boarded house is sagging, and so the water drains from the roof onto their property and their roof. And we're just wondering if there's any progress being made on that house. I had heard that it might be sold or taken to sheriff's sale.
My understanding is that property is in the, it has been posted. And I'm familiar with the property, Ms. Souter, because I live right across the street from it. And so I very much understand what's been going on there. The city, I will tell you, did what it normally does with those properties. When the fire occurred, we boarded it up. We fixed the roof. We had a situation with the front roof starting to cave over or cave in, I guess. Jeff went out and looked at it. And so we stabilized that. So I think we have stabilized it just as we would with any other property. And so as far as water, I'm not familiar with the water issue, but like I said, we've handled that just as we did or would with any other property, no more, no less. And I can tell you that the property, as I understand, has been posted and is on its way to the sheriff's sale. We did not take it to sheriff's sale. We had had a number of fines on the property, of course, that they incurred because of the boarding up and the other repairs that we had to do. The mortgage company, I believe, paid those fines. It was around $8,000. I believe also that the property hadn't gone to sale because of the moratorium on sheriff sales, because I believe the property owner was behind, not only did we have the issues we had and the fines we, put onto the property. And then of course those were paid. So we had no way of then going after them. And we're going to be addressing that later with the boarded up vacant property ordinance that we're going to be dealing with. But I think that also had an impact on why the property hadn't gone to sale. So to answer, just to get to the end of your question here, is that I'm hoping that within the next 4 to 6 months, depending on the process with the, with the county sheriff, that it will go to sheriff's sale, and I suspect someone will buy the property, and hopefully we'll take care of that.
And finally, I noticed that there was some what appears to be demolition debris in the vacant lot behind the senior center. I haven't looked at it for perhaps a week or so. I did contact Mr. Bergstrom about it, and he's going to look into it. I thought that their permit did not permit dumping of anything other than dirt in that lot, that Mr. Midori's permit. So I don't know if somebody else dumped that stuff there or what, but I don't know what happens when something is dumped improperly.
Mr. Barthel?
Jeff, you want to answer that?
Yeah, they pulled 2 dumpsters of debris out of the property. The demolition debris was not put there on purpose. I think the property's, I know I checked with the CCR, the property's in compliance with their permit to fill the property, that part of the property. But that's an active site. It's a service commercial, so things come and go.
But the demolition stuff has been removed.
Well, at least 2 dumpsters full of it, and I'll be checking tomorrow morning, make sure that it's nice and spiffy.
Great,
I saw
thank
the
you.
pictures I saw looked okay, but you got to make sure they didn't move it around the corner, I guess.
Thank you. Any other council comments? We'll go to the mayor.
Great, thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. Want to report on a couple of things. It's been a busy couple of weeks. Earlier this week, I had a conversation with DENREC Secretary Sean Garvin on a number of different topics, including our desire to receive a final permit approval for the bulkhead repair in Battery Park, a letter confirming a grant for the trail in Battery Park, potential department's support for a stage venue in Battery Park. They've had experience with this in other state parks, and perhaps they've got some design or funding options if we were ever to go that direction. Potential support for the possibility of a pilot program for charging of electric vehicles, timely based on the prior conversation. Because we do have, as pointed out many times, a number of residents without off-street parking. Also, I stopped in Dobbinsville Saturday and looked over 2 troubling spots on West 7th Street that need prompt road repairs. I communicated this to the city administrator yesterday, and he in turn forwarded these concerns to DelDOT, and appreciate that. The chief made mention of a letter that was sent on behalf of the ABLE project being run out of the Georgetown Law Center. I don't need to say anything more about that, but congratulations, chief, that got done and got done so quickly. By Washington, D.C. standards, that is record time. On your agenda tonight's a measure to make the mayor part of the MSC Board of Commissioners, and I support that approach and encourage you to support this measure. We've talked about how this can better align the MSC project work and the priorities of the city. I think that's all very important. I think it's a good strategic step for everybody to take and for the taxpayers and ratepayers of the city. I've also heard, I've received, I think like many of you have, multiple conversations and had multiple emails from residents downtown who are understanding of the option that's before us with Delmarva to tear up some streets and improve gas line services, and the option that could be before us to put more infrastructure below ground. I do support those ideas. I do think that that is a worthwhile step to further refine very quickly and understand the expense. It's a probably once in a multi-decade opportunity, and it would be too bad to have that option go without some serious consideration, and probably just do it. Let me say this, I also spoke with Goodwill Fire Chief David Majewski last night, who confirmed what one resident had communicated to me. If there ever is an issue, especially on the Strand, the fewer branches, fewer wires that are in the way, clearly adds to their response time and the safety for the residents and anybody in any buildings that might be in danger. I have been in touch with members of the General Assembly about the proposed charter change as well, and have signaled that that could be coming their way. And they are awaiting a recommendation from the council. As a greater number of us get vaccinated, hopefully more of our economy will reopen fully. I want to remind residents and commercial property owners that we do have a downtown development district program, and that there's great opportunities as people look to invest in properties and infrastructure. And if they have interest, this is a program that is run out of the Delaware State Housing Authority. They can reach out to the city administrator for more information about that program. Provides some really great opportunities for investments in our different buildings. Also, with warmer weather, vaccinations, and better pandemic numbers, we should expect larger crowds in our city. Not sure it's going to be Pokemon-like, but it could very well be. And I think we all have enjoyed some peace and quiet over the last year, notwithstanding the fact we've been in a public health crisis. But the good news is all that's going to be, hopefully, knock on wood, coming to an end with greater vaccinations, warmer weather. But as the chief points out, we are going to see some pretty sizable crowds, my guess, pretty quick here. And I think we all ought to be prepared for that as best we can. Newcastle Arts Council is making plans with Opera Delaware for a return engagement in Battery Park, and details will be forthcoming. The last thing I'll add is I want to remind residents that I think, as the chief already mentioned, that if they see any criminal activity in progress, please call 911. It's really great that people reach out to me, but I'm going to have to turn around and make that call, and we lose valuable time if people have they see trends, or they see their questions about service, or any other comments they'd like to make. It's best if they do that after they've dialed 911 and taken care of business in a more immediate manner. So with that, Madam President, I yield back.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that. I just have a few things I want to share. One, I wanted to thank the Newcastle Community Partnership for the 2 garbage cans that they donated to the city, and those are part of the ones that we talked about earlier that do look very nice, and thank them also for hosting the concerts this summer. I had gotten a couple of questions regarding the fishing pier. Fishing pier is planned, it's approved, it's going to happen. We're just we're after a project that's going on in Wilmington, and so in sometime this year, probably later fall, maybe they will go back to the city to finalize a memorandum of agreement, but that is still going to happen in the Dobbinsville area up there. But it'd be a parking lot, and paved parking lot with lights, and also a nice pier going out for recreation and for better, safety. Also, I want to remind everyone, we're still working on the City of Newcastle Transportation Plan. You can go on the city website, and there's information. I think Ms. Bergmeier is putting something on. If you go on to the Will Mapco site, you can see some options. It's got minutes of past meetings. There's an opportunity to sign up for updates via email. There's an opportunity to go on maps and make comments. So I would really encourage you to use this opportunity. I know transportation, whether it's by vehicle or walking or biking, is a huge issue in our city. So I really do encourage you to go on the site and make your concerns known. We did have a successful meeting, basically a participative group meeting with residents and businesses in February, and there will be more when some more suggestions on solutions come out. So, but please do go to the WillMapGo website. That's all that I had in terms of comments.
President
point,
Ratchford, do you have
Yeah.
anything more on the freight study? Where to tag into that?
Pardon?
The freight study?
The freight study, I don't have any more information on that.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, we talked about that at the last meeting, and we were, Mr. Barthel was going to share our comments, but it's, they are going to maybe come up with another request for information, and I will certainly share that. But
Okay,
that is
thank you.
ongoing. You could go on the WillMapGo website and look into that too. So I encourage all our residents to check on the transportation studies in the area.
Good deal.
So at this point, we're going to open for public comments, and this would be public comments on any topic, or you could talk about, if you would like to talk about something on the agenda. There are a couple of things I would like to make first of come an advance notice on. One is there is on the agenda a reading of an ordinance. It's a first reading, so we will not be having discussion on that. We'll introduce it. If we get a first and a second, it will basically then go to a public hearing, and that would be the point where you would make comments about specifically the vacant and boarded up housing ordinance. So, but if you have comments on anything else, I would welcome those. We are going to have a discussion about underground utilities, and I will be taking some comments at the very beginning of that discussion, and actually have Gail Seitz from the Planning Commission, who's going to summarize some of the past data and also give some comments. So she will be the first person, but I will allow other comments from residents if they are interested, because I know there is a lot of interest in this topic, and we have gotten a lot of comments. So at this point, I'm going to ask, is anything that anyone would like to say about any topic, or about the city flag, or the MSC charter, or there is also a resolution adopting, it's something that council had already decided. It's about basically the purchase order for a ornamental pole at 6th Street associated with the light, but the decision's already made. It's just us authorizing the payment to the state for the special type of light pole. So any comments out there? Do we have any hands up?
I do. I have Phil Gross with his hand up.
Okay, Mr. Gross, you're welcome to speak. If you'd keep it to 3 minutes, please.
Yep, good evening, council. First, I'd really like to take my hat off to our chief. Every meeting seems to be a surprise of another gem, like a prize in a Cracker Jack box. So I thank you for all you do, and hopefully we can keep it up. Next thing is, I want to say how grateful I am that the trash cans are out. But I'm curious as to what the ratio is of recycling, because again, I've been pushing for over a year for new trash cans, as well as including recycling cans. And since City Administrator, you're attending the meeting tomorrow for hacking the Planning Commission, not that my opinion carries any weight, but I think the first one that's already purchased and in hand should be placed in the common area more, where residents and visitors could use it in the courthouse central area versus an off-street area, because plenty more can be bought. There's huge rebates, as Ms. Patone has confirmed a few times, to get more. But I think the first trial one should be in a more common area. And lastly, I second our mayor's belief that if there is to be a charter change and another representative from council, I think the mayor or his designee should definitely be one of the two that's included. I mean, you have to diversify the representation. And I'm just kind of curious as to whether anybody from council or the city heard any reason why the trustees have opted to not continue with a representative to that commission. Anybody have a guess? Has anybody had any kind of conversation about that?
Mr. Gross, this would really be their decision, not our decision. So we really can't comment on it.
Okay, so I guess that's it. And I thank you, President Ratchford, for your service. And as much as we might have bumped heads, I'm going to miss you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. You'll see me next month too. Okay, anyone else want to give general comments?
Yes, I have Judy Baldini.
Okay, Ms. Baldini.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, council. I just had one brief thing. You are going to discuss the utilities on Delaware Street and things going underground. I don't know if anything can be done, but we just wanted to make a statement that we feel that the meters, the gas meters in front of the certain buildings that they are, Clouds Row, even Bridgewater's, and several of the other buildings are unsightly. It just doesn't seem to go with anything that we strive to do as far as maintaining a historic look and what have you. I don't know if they were intended to be hidden or whatever, but or around the corner in buildings or what, they're awful. They're really awful. And I mean, I don't know what to do about it, but it's just a statement that we have to make because I walk down there every day and it's just terrible that we have to see them like that. So thank you if that can be in a discussion for some kind of.
This is Council President Ratcher. I thank you for the comment. I just wanted to respond. My understanding it is now a state law that requires Delmarva to put either a meter or a regulator, which is smaller, and it's the choice of the homeowner. It's a safety issue because they want to be able to turn off gas in case there is a problem. And so it is not anything that we can do anything about that I'm aware of. Mr. Barthel or.
No, Madam President, I think you're right on. And that was what had been described when Delmarva to council and to the public when I believe Delmarva came, not this past December, but 2 Decembers ago,
Yeah.
and explained what the law was and what they were able to do. And that should a resident not want to put, or if a resident decided they didn't want to put the meter in front of the house, the other option, and it couldn't accommodate it somewhere else, then the option for the resident was to pretty much go with another, another source of power, primarily electricity, for example. They could have put in electric heaters, but I think you're correct, Madam President.
Mr. Barthel, I could be wrong, but I seem to remember they said that they would provide some sort of screening in front of these meters.
Suzanne Souter here. I remember that also, but I think they talked about it in terms of shrubbery, which doesn't exactly work when the meter's on the exterior wall of the house on the sidewalk. It works in a suburban
Right.
with a lot and a lawn in front of a house, but that's kind of hard to do on the sidewalk in Newcastle. I don't know what the other options might be, potted plants or whatever, but.
There were a few, when that was done, I mean, it was done back along South Street. It was done along our houses. And I actually stood outside when they were there and said, no, you will not put that in the front of my house. And you can go around the corner, which was a mere, I don't know, 10 feet or something like that. But as long as I was on top of it and insistent, they went around the corner because there was a place around the corner. And there might be the issue of if they had to go inside the house and in order to do part of this project, of course. So if people weren't home, you know, the easiest way to do it is to pop open the one spot where the pipe is and they go down to that pipe. They don't have to do anything else. So, you know, that may have been, it's just that it's a shame. I guess that's about all I can say, is that it's a shame that the ones that are there are so prevalent visually, and there is the one in front of the, I'm guessing that's the
time button. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, we do appreciate your coming out. I will make, I noted it did go to Hack, and they, I think, came up with some suggestions that maybe was vegetation. Also, I understand that Delmarva does work with the homeowners, and there is an option to put it on the side of the house, assuming you have a side of the house. A lot of the Clouds Row does not have sides, but it is an important topic. I think we all are trying to protect the history of our homes. So thank you for commenting. Anyone else? Did they have their hand raised?
Yes, I have Rod Miller.
Okay, Mr. Miller, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry, I had it on mute. Yeah, I'm not going to speak long. I just wanted to, just let you know I'm here. You heard I'd spoken with Valerie, the other night about this situation, which you've all heard me bring up in the past. So I'm not gonna beat that to death right now. I just want to say though that I do look forward to having a much more detailed, discussion about this situation. I've thought about it a lot recently because there have been, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 times in recent weeks where, we've had the tape up, across the street in some areas where, you can't park there for certain hours. And it appears that, it's tenants, moving in and moving out. And whenever that happens, I always think, oh, geez, I wonder how many vehicles, this next, group is going to have. And again, as you've heard me say before, the problem here with parking doesn't exist on the top end of 3rd Street up closer to Delaware. It just doesn't. Those folks can park all day on both sides of the street. Doesn't really exist down on the opposite end either, because a number of those properties have, much wider frontages, and they've also got off-street parking. It's really kind of confined to just where we're all squeezed in the middle here, where I am, and that is simply because of a problem that, there's really no solution to. Well, there is in a way, but I mean, there's no solution to the fact that there are just a lot of multi-unit rentals, and there's simply more cars than there are spaces, reasonably close, to the home. So anyway, we've talked about this before. I have heard it said that it wouldn't help to paint stripes and whatnot, but I'd like to just have a more detailed discussion about that. Maybe it might wind up being something where that isn't the solution. Maybe there's a better answer, or maybe painting stripes is a solution, for part of the block. I don't know, but I'm certainly willing to, to listen to all reasonable, ideas about it. I don't imagine that the folks way up closer to Delaware on 3rd Street would go for the idea. It's really not needed up there, It's just, what can I tell you? It's a frustrating thing simply because there are too many cars here squeezed into a small area. Okay, so anyway, I've got a lot more thoughts on it I can share with you, because see, I don't see this, despite what may happen with electric vehicles, or, who knows what the future holds. But for right now, for the 5 years I've been here and for the foreseeable future, I don't really see it getting better. I can only really see the problem getting worse because a couple of these tenants don't drive. You know, they're getting up there in age. They have family come pick them up. And at some point, they're not going to be there. There's going to be other tenants there who do have vehicles. And I've got a couple gentlemen live on my side, a couple doors down, who are almost never there. I see them maybe a couple of times a year. They're always with family. And, you know, so those are spots. Eventually, they're going to move. There'll be people there that are parking there all the time. They might have more than one vehicle. So I'm looking down the road. I see this as a problem that could get worse. So that's why I want to have further discussion on it.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you, coming to our meeting. I will also encourage you to go to that website that I referenced, WillMapco, because they are studying transportation and they're also studying parking. So they have a lot of experts looking at it. So I would encourage you to, email WillMapco and provide any comments that you have. And Ms. Leary mentioned that it would be a topic next month. So thank you very much for commenting. Anyone else, Ms. Bergmuller?
Yes, I have Darcy Fisk with her hand up.
Okay, Ms. Fisk, go ahead.
I see it now. I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. I have two concerns about this proposed charter change for the MSC. One is that suddenly council is taking over this, and I understand that the MSC lawyer has said that that's all right, but in the past, in the recent past too, the president has been for the MSC to send these charter changes and to be the one that decides them with consultation with the council instead of the other way around. My other concern is the idea of having two council appointments, because I don't know how many of you remember it, but in 2004, the city went bankrupt and they had to ask the MSC to bail them out. And I spoke with Chip Patterson, who was, before Pam was the general manager, and he said, oh, that was not the only time in his tenure. There were several other times. Now what we have is the MSC as a sort of cushion against a problem. I'm not saying anything about this council, but God knows we've had councils that have not done well in the past, and we may well have them in the future. And we would be removing a barrier where now the council cannot just raid the MSC. And I think that's very dangerous. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Fisk, for your comments. I guess I would say that certainly we'll talk about this later. And Jenna, we've been very interactive, and what we are looking at the charter change is specifically regarding appointments, and there's already a formula for contributions. I can't speak to how the city was years ago, but I can tell you that the city is very well run and takes care of its responsibilities. I don't know what happened years ago. So anyway, any other comments from the public?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bergmuller. We're going to go to the topic of the Delmarva Gas Project underground utilities. And I asked Ms. Seitz to come and comment. She's on the Planning Commission and has some information from the comprehensive plan and related surveys that she's going to share, and then also share her personal perspective. And then, well, if anyone else from the public would like to do the same, we'll do that. So Ms. Seitz, would you go ahead, please?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I'll start off by making some comments as a member of the Planning Commission. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware in the most recent comprehensive plan that was approved at the end of last year. There is a goal, and it's in the infrastructure section. It's goal 6.2. And that goal, I'll read it: encourage the relocation of aerial utilities below ground through development of a long-term utility relocation plan and through revisions to the city's subdivision and land development ordinance. Aerial utilities detract significantly From the appearance of the city's neighborhoods, additionally, aerial utilities are susceptible to storm damage, resulting in more frequent interruptions of service. The MSC has relocated some segments of its aerial service below ground when opportunities to do so have occurred. However, there is currently no systematic program to bury overhead utilities. And then there's a number of strategies below that goal. And some of them are strategies dealing with existing properties, and others are strategies dealing for looking at the future, such as to make revisions to subdivision and land development ordinances requiring utility relocation. So there's both aspects in the strategies. So I just wanted to point out that it is one of the planned goals, and the goal that follows that is, as much as possible, to coordinate projects among different entities in the city, as well as utility providers, to be more efficient and have less impact on the city of Newcastle. So I know what we're discussing is we have an opportunity to combine a couple of projects in certain areas. I would also add that before we began work on the update to the comprehensive plan, we did a survey which was taken by 700 people, something like that. And one of the questions in the survey was, what improvements would make the greatest impact on the quality of life in the city of Newcastle? And there were 20 different options, and things like expanded recreational programs, flood management, job opportunities, arts and cultural, et cetera, et cetera. And number 2 was, of the results, visual appearance of the downtown, and in parentheses that had bury power lines, add trees, green spaces. So that was the second highest choice on that question. And we heard that as there were also a lot of comments associated with the surveys. And we also did community meetings where we heard this. So from that, I think the community, it would be very well received in the community. So that's my comment as a member of the Planning Commission. My next comment is as a resident. I live at 55 The Strand. And I personally would love to see the aerial utilities buried. And I don't know, I had sent a couple of pictures. I did send,
I think they're coming up right now.
Okay, there we go. An email to Mr. Barthel and the mayor, and to Pam Petrone, in support of, if possible, burying the utilities. And I thought these pictures just, I didn't have a whole lot of words in my email, but I thought they kind of told the story. So, we follow very strict guidelines in how our house looks and is maintained for historic purposes. And the first thing I see when I look at the front of my house, this is both sides of it. Well, actually 53 and 55 are attached. So the one side is 53 and the other is 55. The utility lines, and they actually drape down in front of the first floor, and then across the street to the houses on the other side, which occasionally get hit by high trucks like moving vans or whatever, and take them out for a period of time. So I'd also like to make the personal comment that if we have an opportunity and there's any way, I don't know finances, et cetera, but we would love to see this opportunity pursued.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Seitz, for sharing the research on the comprehensive plan and the rankings, and also your personal impressions. I think there are a lot of people in this, and what you have is a picture near your house, but it's very typical all over the historic district, you know, and other places around town where you really have the closeness of the buildings and the poles. So thank you very much. At this point, are there any other residents or businesses that would like to make a comment on underground utilities? Okay. If not, then I'm gonna actually turn it over to Mr. Barthel to present, and Ms. Patone to present basically an overview of what you can tell us about putting utilities underground. I guess we'd start with what Delmarva is going to do. If you would start, Mr. Barthel.
Sure, Madam President. Really, the thing I'm going to just basically reiterate is from what I mentioned to council last month in my February presentation, which was the fact that Delmarva has presented a new 5-year plan at a meeting that Mr. Bertram and I attended in January. I sent that over to MSC, to Ms. Patone, and the next phase of that, which, if you will, is the second phase of their 5-year plan, Delaware Street being the first. The next set of streets would be the Strand from Delaware Street, Harmony from the Strand to East 2nd, and including East 2nd, West 4th Street from William Street to Delaware Street, and Harmony from 4th to 6th. Now, what I did, or what I have done since, is tried to gather some numbers from MSC about, you know, because of their experience with Comcast and with Verizon on the Delaware Street side of things, and of course with their knowledge about putting their electrical wiring and what have you underground. And I'm gonna kick this over to Pam in a second, but based on a conversation that I had with her today, you're probably looking at combined numbers of about $5.6 million. Actually, greater than $5.6 million, and that would include the city / MSC putting, as I said, Verizon and Comcast cables underground. So, you know, again, I don't want to speak for MSC, but I think maybe, you know, Pam, if you want to express to council your thoughts on this, MSC's thoughts on this, your priorities, how you've gotten to those, to where you are today on what it is you're thinking, I think that would probably be the best thing at this point.
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so, well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for allowing me to come and hear the conversation and share some of the history that we have at the MSC with the conversion of aerial to underground. You know, as Ms. Seitz put forth, it is part of the comprehensive plan. It's part of our goal to convert our aerial utilities to underground because of reliability purposes as well. And we have been actually actively pursuing this since 2015. It has been, you know, for all new construction required, when there's work that's being done, houses renovated, you know, things are going underground at those times. But in 2015, we started really pursuing converting the aged infrastructure underground. Now, we went and spoke with engineers and talked about trying to understand, you know, what challenges we were going to have. And most of the time we would get hit with, it's too expensive, it's too expensive, it's too expensive. But we, you know, really believed, and we have a staff that is capable of doing the work. And we felt that if we could do the work with our own staff, we could bring those numbers down and make them feasible. And so that is why in 2015, we did the Booker Circle project, which is an area in Penn Valley community. May 7th, 2015, we started that. It was about $98,000. That does not include our labor and our equipment, the MSC staff doing it. Of course, it takes a lot longer and so forth, but we were able to accomplish that. In 2018, we and the reason these areas were identified is because they were backyard design of poles and infrastructure that were very difficult to get to, had fences and things keeping us from getting back there. And so they were causing extra time and money for maintenance costs, trees bringing down those poles, bringing down the lines. So, we knew that the infrastructure was at the end of its useful life and would need to be replaced. So we were able to convert. Now, Booker Circle, Comcast was able to go under with us, but Verizon would not go under. So we were able to convert Comcast. Van Dyke Village, similar situation. Backyard design, 2018, we identified a budget of $756,000. That does not include all of the labor, approximately 5 to 6 years worth of labor. It's still going on. We still have another 3 to 4 years on that project. But these are the ways we're making it feasible with the cost. So the reason why I bring these up, and then of course Delaware Street last year, Delmarva Gas came in. Is there a way that we could coordinate with them? We took a look at it, and Delaware Street actually had a lot of our electric already underground because several years back there was, a movie, and the movie theater group came in. They paid for the majority of that conversion. So it was something that we were able to work out, and Verizon did go underground with us, although we had to pay for it. And it was communicated from the commission at that time that, the electric and water ratepayers shouldn't be paying for phone and cable service to go underground. If that's something that, the city feels is warranted, then that would be something that, really shouldn't come from the electric and water ratepayers. But because of the opportunity and the fast pace, and because we already had a lot of electric underground, the decision was made to go ahead and do that and count that as, basically a contribution to the city for that portion, and that any future projects could be explored hand in hand with city council. And so I'm appreciating that we're having this conversation now. So back in the fall, when the MSC was putting together their capital budget for the next year, we did look at Delmarva Gas's project and did come up with high-level estimates of the numbers that Bill just talked about. We also at that time realized that if we're going to try to go underground throughout the historic district, we needed to have a design, an engineered design, and not just hurry up and rush and put, manholes and infrastructure, and then, we didn't want anything to be missed. So we did get approval for engineers, utility engineers, to start a review of our comprehensive design of underground. It's just started. And so we need some time for them to finish that so that we can better fine tune some of the numbers that you just heard. So I guess I'm here to hear everybody's comments, and I've been asked by, Council President Bratchford to, consider what kind of funding. And of course, part of funding could be rate increases. I would suggest that if that is, somewhere where council and the commission decide to go forward with, that we be able to identify tighter numbers, and then have a cost of service done that would kind of identify what the effect on the rates would be. And then I believe we're also, there are grants and things of that nature that could be explored. But then, of course, the other part of this is to ensure that Verizon and Comcast would be on board, because if the objective is for beautification and you're able to get the MSC to go underground, if you're not able to get Verizon and Comcast to go underground, you're still going to have those poles. So I don't know if you wanted all that information, but I just wanted to give you some history as to, what the MSC has been actively working towards as far as converting aerial to underground.
So this is Councilperson Smith. So what's the next step, Pam? Is it to just sharpen your pencil and see what the actual cost would be, finer numbers?
The next step is to have utility engineers finish their design, give us a understanding of what the engineering would require. And then from that, yes, we should be able to get some information from that to do better estimating. And then I guess present to council and commission. I will say that, you know, we have other projects. So the other challenge of this is that, you know, there are other capital projects that are underway. And then, you know, AMI project, which is smart metering, that was just approved in January, that we were anticipating, you know, coming to council about as well, because we anticipate there will need to be some debt incurred for that. And so we would be explaining the project of the AMI project and what debt we would anticipate incurring. And so this AMI project has been being discussed for the last 8 years. Our metering system is AMR, and it's coming to the end of its useful life. There are, you know, many benefits that we could go through, you know, at a later time to discuss what those are. But yes, that would be the next step to answer your question, is to finalize that engineering design and come up with sharper numbers.
Suzanne Saudi here. I just have a question for Mr. Bartel. You mentioned a figure of approximately 5.6 million. And I think you said that was the total cost. So does that include Delmarva's portion, or is that just what the city and or MSC would have to cover?
No, that does not include Delmarva. Those were the numbers that were given to me by Pam based on for Verizon, Comcast, and MSC.
And that's just for this phase 2 area or for the
Correct.
entire
That's
city?
my understanding, correct.
Would you like me to elaborate on that?
Yeah, please do.
So the phase 2, that includes outsourcing all the labor. So unfortunately, we would, you know, our crews currently would not be able to put the electric underground like we're doing in Van Dyke. So those estimates are high-level estimates for excavation, installation of pathway, conduit, installation of manholes, and handholds, because Comcast and Verizon would need those. So we're estimating their numbers as well in this, so that you can look at, you know, the whole picture. The wire, the transformers, the labor to do that, and then the restoration. So it is, you know, everything that we would anticipate you know, would need to be done. It's a lot larger of a number because, you know, we're not able to do the labor ourselves. And the phase is fairly comprehensive. As I said, Delaware Street, fortunately, there was a lot of the utilities already underground. So, you know, there wasn't as much cost associated with it.
And Suzanne Saudi again, Ms. Patone, when you say your staff can't do this, you mean they don't have the qualifications, experience, whatever necessary to do it, or they simply don't have time because they're doing the other projects?
So, good question. So yes, and I apologize, probably shouldn't say can't. So the thought process is we need to stay focused on Van Dyke Village's project. So the thought is that we don't have the time currently to do it in an effective way in alignment with Delmarva's timing, and that it would make more sense to outsource it if that's the goal of council and the commission. Now, the other alternative, I guess, would be is that you know, because if there's a desire to continue on this quick pace and staying in line with Delmarva Gas, you know, we could hire, you know, more linemen to accomplish that. But of course, there's additional operating expenses with that, which is something that could be explored if that's the direction we go.
What is their timeline, Pam? Could this be, I see it's in phases. How long are those phases stretched out to?
It's considered a 5-year plan. So each phase is 1 year, and kind of like the Delaware Street.
$1 million a year.
Yes.
This is Council President Ratchford. Also, we're in franchise agreement negotiations with both Verizon and Comcast. And one of the questions I've had is, well, why don't we just make them go underground and they don't get a choice? And I guess maybe someone, Mr. Losco or Mr. Barthel could respond to that.
Well, Mr. Lasko and I had a conversation, have had numerous conversations with the Cohen Group, who, as you know, Mrs. Radford, have been negotiating these agreements on behalf of the city. They were funded a couple of years ago for that purpose, and they are, just for your information, pretty much completed with the Verizon agreement, close to completing the Comcast agreement, to the degree that once they're done with the negotiation, obviously that would then come back to council for them to present to council what the agreements essentially are, for council to make a final decision on whether or not they want to sign those agreements. With that said, I'm going to ask Mr. Lasko to comment in a little bit more from a legal perspective, based on the conversation we had this morning. And to your point, Mrs. Radford, why it would be rather difficult, if not impossible, to force them to do that. But go ahead, Dan, you want to?
First, thanks. This is Dan Lasko. So our conference call, as recent as this morning, described the fact that with in both cases, we could probably make them do it if we're willing to foot the bill. But in the terms of Verizon, the city had granted them via ordinance right-of-way over aerial lines in the city back in 1915. So they have a vested right in the improvements they've made to these aerial lines. And they're not likely to give up those rights without the city paying the tab of moving them underground. If we tried to force something along those lines, such as repeal that 1915 ordinance and mandate that they go underground, good chance that they would just say, that's fine, you can do that. We're leaving the city of Newcastle and our residents won't have access to Verizon, Fios, and the related services that they provide. And Comcast is not too much dissimilar. They don't have the same ordinance rights, but they're likely also going to take the position that if the city's willing to foot the bill, we'll work with you. If not, we're not interested in doing it.
Let me clarify. I think Comcast was willing to pay for Delaware Street. Is that correct? But they won't always pay for undergrounding. What is their position?
I was only speaking prospectively via their franchise agreement.
Okay.
So I can answer that from how they've been interacting with the MSC. We have, in the projects that we have went under, we've done the excavation, they come with their material and we drop it in the hole for them. And so they've paid for that material. And then they do the conversion of their services and run their wire. So they have indicated that that's in agreement with what they're required to do, and we have encouraged it. So they have cooperated. Verizon has, as Dan suggested, we had to pay for the Delaware Street.
Madam President, just
Yes,
one quick comment, having spoken to both companies. So Comcast has a vested business interest in being underground. Verizon, it matters none to them whether they're above ground or underground with the technology that exists today. So Comcast is willing to play ball. Verizon, it's really kind of not in their economic interest to do this, because if they do it here, they have to do it other places. So it takes a little moral suasion, or you have to finance it yourself.
There's also, I think, some service issues in terms of how bad everything looks. I understand if you call them, if you discontinue their service and go to the competitor, that they will come back if someone calls them. But there's certainly, I think things could be at least a little more slightly. I still would like, personally, I think it's important that the city figure out a way to go underground. There are lots of options, including, contributions by the city, rate increases. Also, sometimes you can get some community transportation funds. That has happened in other cities to help offset the costs. There's also situations where a certain section of the city could be designated as a certain district, and there would be some type of extra charge in that particular district that would be paid not upfront, obviously, but all of it, but financed over time and paid for over time. So I think that there are some options. I think that we need to look and see if there is any possible way to make this happen, because Delmarva is going to come in and do this. They're going to disrupt and rip up streets and all that, and we're going to have to go through the repairs. It's going to cost the city to, if we wanted to do these streets over future years, it'll cost the city more from a paving standpoint. It'll also be very disruptive for people. We all know how long Delaware Street took, but it's going to happen on all these other streets to have to go through, put the gas meters in, the gas line, the new high pressure gas lines, and then to come back a few years later and try to do something else. So I think if we don't get it done now, I think it's very little chance the city would get it done in the future. That's my impression. Am I incorrect? Mr. Barthel or Ms. Patone, I can't imagine it's going
I
back
don't,
in.
to your point, I don't, I don't disagree that this is and that's why we're having the discussion, and that's why I brought it to council. But if and you're 100% right, if it is put off another, so if Delmarva finishes in 4 years, so that's their 5-year plan, and we wait another 5 to 10 years, and the additional cost of having to rip up those streets. And I asked Jeff to give me an idea of what that might be, even if it's, at this point. So that's that cost avoidance of whatever 500 or 600, whatever, thousands of dollars it will be to then go back and rip up the streets and redo them, not to mention the inconvenience. I guess basically what I'm saying is I agree 100% with what you just said. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that it's out of the realm that 15 years from now, the MSC or whomever decides to go ahead and do this, but those are the things that you'd be dealing with, down the road. So yeah, if we can figure out a way to do it now, I think that's the smart thing to do.
Any other comments? We're not going to solve this problem tonight. I guess any other comments about it would be appreciated from council.
You're going to rip up the street once. I don't see a reason to rip it up twice.
Okay, maybe we have to prioritize where, what are the key areas of the historic area if the money doesn't go far enough. I'd like to think a key area is Chestnut Street, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty far down the list. So, maybe we have to set priorities.
Well, Mr. Smith, if I can address that, because I did have a conversation with the gentleman from Delmarva, if you guys remember, Vince Chacon, who presented at that council meeting 2 Decembers ago. And certainly they're willing, as they were with Delaware Street, willing, able, whatever, to allow us to come in and work with them while those streets are open. That's it. Obviously, they're willing to work with us. However, to your point, this plan is in place, and they did inform me that they intend to go forward, because there have been some suggestions. Can they stop this now and maybe postpone it till a later time? The information I got was that this is on their schedule. They intend to move forward with it at this time. So basically, we have what I would call, they wouldn't give me an exact date of when they were going to start. I think I mentioned this last month, sometime in the spring, okay, whatever that may be. But so what I'm getting at is we may have a month to 6 weeks to figure out, to figure this out. Now, that doesn't mean we can't figure it out. I'm simply just telling you, all of you folks and the folks listening, that that's kind of the hurdle we're up against at this point.
Well, I think we should work hard then to figure out what we can do. Like I said, I've seen, 5 or 6 different options. I don't think, like, for instance, if you said, okay, since Comcast will go underground and Verizon won't, I don't think it's realistic to say that one part of the city doesn't want to have competitive alternatives. I don't think it's good. And I don't think a lot of people would be happy with that. But I do think that there are other ways, to actually pay for this over time. So I think I would encourage MSC and the city to work real hard, because if it's going to happen pretty soon, then I think it's much better that we're doing something. Like if we made a decision not to do this, then there we go. But if we make a decision that we want to do it, and I think encourage us to look at a way to find the answer to do it, then I think that you can't wait till they've already started digging the street out.
Madam President, I do have one question, if I may. Pam, you had indicated that you've got folks looking at this. Are they looking now at grinding down to what the actual cost would be? Or have you already started that process? And if you have or haven't, how long before you can get those numbers?
Well, that's a good question. They have already started to look at our entire system, and we asked them to concentrate on phase 2 Delmarva gas. I do not have a finalized timeline, so I can, I will check on that. I guess, it might be helpful to hear from council and the commission, the parameters that they're willing to go with, kind of where I think where Mr. Smith was headed, is, what kind of numbers are we talking about, that they're willing to, that's part of what we're going to be faced with. And if it goes as quick as it did with Delaware Street, we really will need to have some very quick special meetings to make decisions, because we lost out on some of the advantage of, first of all, it's not as simple as there's just one trench and we all go in it, because there's not enough room, because you've got laterals coming off of all of these services and we can't fit everything in just, so it's not like, we're only going to dig this one trench, we all go in it and we saved money because Delmarva dug it. We had to dig another trench along the other side to put some of the other services in. There was some, savings, and I understand, you saved some with paving, but we're not convinced of how much savings we really had trying to organize it with them. So, yes, you're saving on the paving, but I'm not sure the rest of it yet. We're still, and we haven't even started design on this particular phase. So that being said, any feedback from council and of course the commissioners at the 18th meeting as to parameters that they might be comfortable with, because I would want to turn this around to our rate group and see what that meant for rates and see where other funding could come from.
Well, Mrs. Radford, if I may just comment on that, and Pam, you and I talk, okay, I understand what you said as far as the overall, you did not experience that much of a cost savings, say from your end of it. But as council is aware, we saved about $165,000 in paving expenses that were allocated for Delaware Street. So at the end of the day, if we are going to be repaving those streets by us, the city versus we, then we have to absolutely look at those costs.
Oh, I agree with you. I didn't mean to say that you didn't incur those savings. I'm saying that the timing, if we lag behind Delmarva, that might not be a problem, if you see what I'm saying.
I do, but I think that's why we have to look at this as an aggregate, as an overall.
Agreed.
What are we doing overall as two, let's just say, two combined companies here, if you will.
Agreed. Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing.
Okay, great.
And so I think if you could do some more work, then maybe we may need to have a special meeting or something because of the timing issue. And I think this is critical. Like I said, there are 5 or 6, 7, 8 different ways to look at how to structure the cost and share the cost or whatever. So let's take a deeper look, understand what we're dealing with, and then regroup on that. So thank you very much for that discussion.
I have a question real quick. I'm looking at the engineering drawing here, and I see the yellow phase 2 from Delaware to Harmony on 2nd, up Harmony and the Strand. But I also see it down here from 4th Street. I'm going to guess that's down to 6th, and from Delaware Street on West 4th. So is that the one project? Yeah, there you go. Thank you. So is that the one project we're looking at? We're not just looking at 2nd Harmony and the Strand. You're also looking at this part of Harmony that goes down to, again, I guess 6th Street. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that is correct. Those were the streets that I listed early on, but yes, that is correct.
Okay. And may I ask what the really dark line going down Delaware Street is?
I'd have to look at.
Because I know that they.
Is that completed?
Yes, that's what's completed.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
I was like, what else is going in that we don't know about? But thank you.
So, Mr. Brethdale, for a recap, the next phase 2, which is we finished phase 1 on Delaware Street, includes which streets?
As I initially said, the Strand from Delaware Street, Harmony from the Strand to East Second and including East Second, West Fourth from William Street to Delaware Street, and Harmony from Fourth to Sixth.
Okay.
And I will tell you this, that I was told that, okay, it's an aggressive schedule for them to complete this by the end of this calendar year. But that's their intention. So I will share that with you as well. It's an aggressive schedule to get that done in that time frame. But that's what they're trying to do. And I think that's probably good.
Okay.
some
Well, I
degree.
mean, we don't want all the streets to be opened up
Right.
for a long time.
Right.
So,
Madam
okay.
President, Madam President, if I could just,
Mayor.
for 30 seconds, I just want to add a little context. We've got broad infrastructure needs, and I would encourage everybody to think about this very broadly. Second, I would say, a little bit of context. What does $5.6 million look like? The garrison cost $17 million for site work in 4 buildings. So you're talking about, basically site work in a building. There's an intrinsic value for weather events, public safety, like the fire chief had talked about, and other kinds of things that you play for the long term. I'd encourage you to really look deeply and carefully at all these numbers and think about this as broadly. Across the city, infrastructure is a big payoff over the long run. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments before we close this topic? Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move, since we've been talking about MSC, I'm going to move to item number 3, which is a resolution to consent to the proposed MSC charter changes. And this would be, at this point, I'm going to read the, basically, I'll give an introduction. The reason we're having these discussions, and we've had several discussions, including discussions with MSC, is that the trust no longer wants to make an appointment of one commissioner. There are 3 commissioners at this point, one currently by the mayor, no confirmation by council, just by the mayor, the other by council, and then the third by the trust. The trust is no longer going to appoint. So the trust, that means that the person that is actually filling that slot now has decided that their term will end on March 31st. And so there's something, and there's no change can be made without a change to the charter because it's specified in the MSC charter. The lieutenant governor has told us if you want to change to something from a municipality standpoint, you need to put it in a March or April. So that's so we could get a response back to the city by the end of June, when their session ends, because otherwise you'd probably have to wait till next year, which would not be good to have to operate with 2 commissioners. We've had a lot of discussions about this topic and about the importance of working together, and also the benefits of having the mayor take a seat on the commission, and then also more active involvement of the city administrator. So there are things that come up. If you've been to an MSC commissioner meeting, there are a lot of very operational type things that get discussed. So, if there's a new vehicle or a new project, or someone on the city knows something and someone on MSC doesn't know about it, then there can be some more information sharing. So I think it's very important from that standpoint. And I think it's very important that we've had good discussions and that we can agree on all that. So at this point, I'm going to ask for a motion for resolution 2021-12. Who moved first?
I'll second it.
Okay, second it. This is a resolution to consent to proposed MSC charter changes concerning appointment of commissioners and related matters. Whereas pursuant to Section 1B of the Charter of the Municipal Service Commission, MSC, the trustees of the Newcastle Common are entitled to appoint one of 3 commissioners to the MSC Commission. And whereas the trustees of the common have decided they will not make future commissioner appointments to MSC, beginning with the expiration of their current appointee's term on March 31st, 2021. And whereas this has caused the City Council and the MSC to evaluate how they wish to provide for the appointment of commissioner who previously would be appointed by the trustees. And whereas revising the manner in which MSC commissioners are appointed necessitates an amendment to the MSC charter. And whereas after discussions between city representatives, MSC's general manager / secretary, and MSC's attorney, the parties have reached a general consensus on suitable changes to the MSC charter to address the appointment of MSC commissioners as shown on Exhibit A attached to this resolution and incorporated herein by reference. And whereas the proposed amendment to the MSC charter includes 1, granting City Council the power to appoint 2 of the 3 MSC commissioners, with the incumbent mayor serving as the 3rd MSC commissioner, 2, setting the terms of appointed commissioners at 4 years, and 3, allowing the city administrator to serve as a substitute for the mayor on the commission in the mayor's absence. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Newcastle hereby confirms its consent to the amendment of the MSC charter by the General Assembly in the form attached hereto as Exhibit A. There should be a change in the whereas, the second from last whereas, which is to address the appointment. That should be appointment on the final version. But at this point, I'm going to open it up. Dan, do you have some comments you'd like to make?
Thank you, Madam President. The resolution itself probably hits upon the most significant substantive change here. You've mentioned that the trustees no longer wish to make appointments, so we needed to fill that gap. The council then will appoint 2 of the 3 members. The mayor will serve as the 3rd. In the mayor's absence, the city administrator can participate in meetings and even vote on behalf of the mayor if the mayor is not present for the meeting. One of the things that's been done is to increase the terms of the commissioners from 2 to 4 years here. The mayor himself, his term would coincide with his own term as mayor, whereas the other 2 commissioners would be appointed by the city council for separate 4-year terms. The current commissioners would complete their existing terms. The first expiration, I think, is the end of this month, and the mayor would then assume that role. And when the other 2 positions terminate, then the council would make the appointments. Aside from that, the mayor takes no salary for serving as a commissioner, unlike the other commissioners who do. The council has the ability to remove commissioners, but not the mayor, but the other 2 appointed commissioners by a vote of 4 persons on council. And the mayor, of course, can only be removed for reasons stated in the city charter for the removal of the mayor himself. So I think those cover the main substantive points. There were a couple of cleanup things that were done to correct either typographical errors or misnomers. For example, there was one reference to a chapter, and really they meant to say the charter. So there was some cleanup that was done here too. But I think I've covered all the substantive points.
Suzanne Souter here. Mr. Lasco, just in response to a concern expressed earlier and some other questions that have been raised with me individually, this change makes absolutely no change to the ruling, the ordinance governing the payment from the MSC to the city. Is that correct?
Oh, that's correct. That hasn't changed at all.
And so if anybody in the future wanted to change that, that would require a subsequent charter change. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It would also have to go through the state legislature, et cetera. So it could not be done in a simple manner.
The only way it can be done is if council said, no, thank you, I don't want the money.
Okay, but if the council wanted more money, it would have to go through a charter change.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Okay, Ms. Bateau, would you like to make any comments?
Well, I guess I can say that over the past 4 months, the commission, they've expressed their preference on the alternatives that were discussed, and they've voiced their concerns regarding different areas. And a lot of those areas have been met through this agreement. And the commission ultimately consulted with legal counsel and concluded that the decision rests with city council And so, appreciate the different, concessions that you've listened to the commission's concerns and have, made some changes accordingly. So.
And I would tell you, this is to strengthen us together. That we really appreciate all the work that the commission does, and I think our citizens will basically agree to that you do a wonderful job. This is just to clean up some of the appointments and then also to have more participation. So any other comments?
I would also say, I think that as was pointed out by the mayor, the communication and being improved will certainly benefit everybody. So.
And I think the alternate situation, which is essentially what the city administrator would be serving in an alternate, not having any voting power unless the mayor was absent. But that's how the DMEC is done in a similar manner, maybe not exactly the night, but that's a board that the MSC serves on, that basically a group of utilities, of muni utilities. So that's kind of similar to that. And this is a very different situation. The MSC isn't a part of the city, but has its own charter and operates in many ways independently from the city. They set their rates separately and that type of thing. So many municipalities, this is not the way it's done. It's basically the municipality is part of the city. Lewis is the only one that doesn't have that arrangement, and they have an elected board. So this puts an elected person on the board, which is, I think, a very good thing. Any other comments? Okay, at this point, I think we're going to go to vote. All those in favor indicate by saying, voting, this is resolution 2021-12, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, this resolution has passed unanimously. Thank you very much. We're going to go to the next item, which is back to the resolution to adopt a new flag. And this is a topic that has come up several times before too. I do have a motion to read resolution 21-10, resolution to adopt a new flag.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'm going to read the resolution. We'll have discussion. This is introduced by Mr. Smith. This is a resolution to adopt a new flag for the city of Newcastle. Whereas the city of Newcastle wishes to present itself as a city which honors its historic past, but which foresees a bright future. And whereas the current city flag meets none of the criteria for modern flags set forth in the North American Vexillological Association, NAVA, guidelines, being a type described by the association as a seal on a bed street. And whereas the city of Newcastle supported and has adopted the 2018 branding manual sponsored by the Newcastle Community Partnership. And whereas a design has been presented to council which follows the standards presented in the branding guide. Now therefore be it resolved that the flag of the city of Newcastle be as illustrated below with the following specifications. It shall feature a blue background with the branding manual logo marked shield centered on it with the words new and castle on either side of the shield. All text and colors shall follow the branding manual guide as follows. Text font Zahran color gold CMYK 2640 73.3. Field color blue CMYK 99 85 36 27. Ratio of fly with the link to hoist width is 3:2. Mr. Smith, would you like to comment?
I think that's basically what we had come to an agreement on. I think there was a lot of favor for using the branding guide, and I think this does that. And there was also concern that the name of the city be placed on the flag. So that is what is presented here. And I hope that it meets council's approval.
Any other comments?
Is there a plan for the rollout or to switch over?
No plan for the rollout, but it would be great to have one. Yeah, I hadn't thought that far ahead.
Okay. I mean, 'cause there's gonna be a minimal cost to it, if anything.
Well, as far as having the flags or buying the flags,
Getting them printed and buying them and switching them over.
yeah, I'm going to make a motion for spending some money to buy some flags.
If this resolution passes,
If this resolution passes.
then we'd need to fund. The file is not a lot of money, but it wasn't budgeted, and I think that would be the proper way to go. And you understand, you've talked to city staff that we have some, a little bit extra money, so this year. So any other questions or comments?
I'll order one.
Pardon?
If it passes, I'll order one.
Suzanne Souther here. I know we had a discussion about this before, and I don't want to beat it too much, but my understanding is the guidelines say it's best not to have words on the flag. And there was concern expressed, well, then how will anybody know whose flag it is? And that's why they wanted the words. But where would this flag be flown outside the city of Newcastle?
Just in the city, I think, unless there's a lineup of town flags in Dover or anything like that. But I would think that this would be flown widely in Newcastle, and I hope at some point folks would want to buy smaller versions to fly on their lawn or from their window.
So
And separation day.
I guess the point is, if it's mainly, if not entirely flown within the city, wouldn't it be pretty obvious whose flag it was or what it represented?
I would think so, but there would be an awful lot of people from out of town visiting Newcastle. And if the tall ships would fly it, they'd be other places.
Well, the ships would be elsewhere, yeah.
Yeah, but we get a lot of visitors, and so
they know they're in the city of Newcastle when they're here, I hope.
They do, but I don't think the branding symbol is as forthright as a lot are on flags. Other flags you see where you look at it and say, oh yeah, that's so and so, that's New York or whatever it is. And it maybe doesn't say that loud enough. That's the message I was getting from City Council, that it didn't say Newcastle loud enough.
I just want to say, this is Council President Roger, that also, if you think about pictures being taken, then the name of the city be reflected in that picture. It wouldn't be just beautiful scenery, it would also have our name.
That would be great. There was a picture with the old flag at the dock with a number of folks. I think Mr. Platt and you were in that picture, and I think another picture like that would be in order.
Any other comments?
And like I said, just to kind of reinforce why I felt the name should be on there, was when you look at all the other cities in the state, most of them have the name on it. I mean, Wilmington, Dover, Smyrna, Newark, they all had Lewis, they all have their name on there.
Yeah, a lot of them have city seals on bed sheets, Mike.
That's what I'm saying, but a lot of them have their names on
there. And I think that's kind of where we ended up. That was,
right.
So, yeah. So, any other comments, or if not, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2021 selecting a new flag for the city of Newcastle indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimously, then we've just adopted a new flag. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Great, and if you will let me make that motion for spending some money in order to procure flags. I think, basically when thinking of a new city flag, we're thinking about in front of the admin building. Well, there's a flag inside the admin building, and there's city there are flagpoles throughout the city, and maybe we want to fly our flag at the entrances to the city. So I went out and went to the current supplier of city flags, who happens to be a member of the National or the North American Vexillological Association. And he was enthusiastic and gave us a very good price. And I had asked for a quote for let's see, 25. And so he's given us a price even lower than the old flag, and this requires some design on their part. So he's giving us a good price, and he says the list price, we're saving $3,000 some dollars. The grand total is $1,122.50. So I'd like to make a motion that council authorize the expenditure of $1,122.50 in order to procure flags, new flags for the city of Newcastle.
That's 25 flags, Russ?
Yes.
So moved.
There's a second. That would be a
Oh,
second.
second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's second. Okay. All those in favor of purchasing the flags indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now we have a flag design, and we'll also have flags, which will even make it that much better.
I'll plan a rollout, Mike.
Right. Yeah, you'll have to talk about that. Next, the topic is a resolution authorizing the city administrator to sign an intersection improvement agreement for the installation of poles at 6th and Delaware Street. So indicated this is not a decision about the poles. We already picked the design. It's just to meet our commitment to pay for them. Do we have a motion to consider resolution 2021?
So moved.
Have a second? A second, Mr. Platt? Okay, I'm going to read the resolution. This is resolution 2021-11. It's a resolution authorizing city administrator to sign an intersection improvement agreement for the installation of ornamental poles at 6th and Delaware Street by the State of Delaware Department of Transportation. Whereas the City Council of the City of Newcastle has requested that DelDOT replace the traffic light at 6th and Delaware Streets, and whereas DelDOT has agreed to replace the light with a standard pole, and whereas there are 3 additional aesthetic options for the city to consider at an additional expense to the city as follows. Option 1, black coated pole, added cost $9,023.60. Option 2, black coated flute ornamental pole with ornamental pole bases, added cost $22,318. Option 3, ornamental poles without the ornamental pole bases, added cost $16,958. And whereas on January 30th, 2020, the City Council passed Resolution 2020-04 electing option 3, ornamental poles without the ornamental pole bases, added cost $16,958. And whereas DelDOT has presented the city with an intersection improvement agreement documenting the parties' agreement with respect to the installation of the new traffic light at 6th and Delaware Streets in the city, including the city's obligations to pay $16,958 for the installation of the selected ornamental poles. And whereas said purchase agreement has been reviewed by City Council and the city administrator and approved by the city solicitor. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Newcastle hereby authorizes the city administrator to sign the purchase agreement tendered by the State of Delaware Department of Transportation for the above described ornamental poles to be erected at 6th and Delaware Street at a cost of $16,958. Any other discussion?
Madam President, when is this project going to take place? Do you know?
Mr. Barthel?
Again, my understanding is sometime in the late spring is what we've been told. Jeff and the folks from MSC have met with DelDOT. And the most recent information I have is sometime in the late spring, Mr. Platt. The best I can tell you.
And I know this is a little off topic, but my next question is, where's the control box going to be? That's normally a pretty large silver type box. It normally goes like 4 feet by 4 feet high. Did they mention that? Did the engineers mention that with Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff, you want to confirm that? But I believe it's on the corner of Mr. Toner's property.
Okay.
Is that correct, Jeff?
Yes, not a ways back from the corner, but yes, I believe it'll be black also.
Okay.
We just hope Mr. Toner has no access and can't play with those lights.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor, resolution 2021 to purchase an ornamental pole at 6th and Delaware Streets indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that resolution has passed unanimously. And now we're going to the last topic for the agenda, and that will be a first reading of ordinance 531. At this point, I'm going to ask Mr. Lasco to give a summary.
Thank you, Madam President. I think this was originally Councilperson Leary's brainchild to work on this vacant property statute to address not just vacant properties, but also boarded up properties and to help expedite remediation of both. So this went through several iterations that have been discussed in the 2 other council meetings. But some of the major points that discussed here are to create a finding system for people who don't promptly address boarded up properties. For example, if a property becomes boarded up or one purchases a property, for example, at a sheriff's sale that is boarded up, the building official sends them a certified mail notice where they are given 90 days to address the problem and remediate the property, bringing it into compliance with the code. And that is just the building code, the housing property maintenance code, and securing a certificate of occupancy for it. They do have the ability to secure extensions of up to 9 months if they have adequate reason for that, and they have a remediation plan, and that would be up to the building official. If they're not happy with the result there, they'll have appeal rights to the Board of Building Appeals. But if one does not address the problem by curing it within the 90-day period or within any extension period, fines of $500 a day start to accrue. Those fines translate to liens on the property that would give the city the ability to pursue these properties at a munitions sale and have them auctioned off by the sheriff and recycle them back into proper use in the community. Separately from that, we dealt with vacant property registration fees to help tie up some of the loopholes that existed, and also to enhance the finding system there. I think, as we all know, we currently have an ordinance that requires that properties that are vacant for more than 45 days be registered with the city. For the first year, there is no vacant property registration fee, but if you go into the second year, fines start accruing. Well, probably the major change here is to enhance those fines so that for the second year, the registration fee is $1,000. And for the third year and any subsequent year, it's $3,000 per year. And again, these are translated to be liens upon the property that will give us the ability for somebody who is has failed to pay their registration fee, gives us the ability to pursue them at a sheriff's sale. Interest is also accruing on delinquent fees at 18%. So it's, again, the impetus here is to get people to place vacant properties into active use in the city. There are exemptions. Somebody who is on military deployments, somebody who is on a seasonal vacation not to exceed 6 months, somebody who is on is caring for somebody with an illness and has to be a home caregiver elsewhere. There are some exceptions that are built into the statute for this, but generally speaking, the registration fees apply. There's also a one-time waiver for registration fees for vacant properties if a building is in active remediation to renovate. And that can be for up to 9 months as well. And again, there's always appeal rights on all of these to the Board of Building Appeals. So those are the major changes to the ordinance that exists currently in Chapter 141 that have been discussed over the last couple of months.
And Ms. Leary, I want to thank you for your work on this. Would you like to make any comments?
This also, I believe, one of the important things also eliminates the for sale.
Yes, that was a loophole that existed before, that you could avoid the vacant property registration fee if you listed your property for sale, but really had no intention of selling it. So you could put it on the market for 45 days, take it off, put it back on, take it off, and avoid the registration and the fees. So that was one of the loopholes I mentioned that was eliminated.
Yeah, and maybe I didn't catch the other one too, but if you mentioned it, I was listening, but is the ability to go in within a year instead of 2 years in order to inspect the property.
That is included as well. One other aspect of that we added to this was that if a person refuses the building official's ability to inspect after a year of vacancy, the building official will be able to go to Justice of the Peace Court to secure a warrant to enter.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to, first we'll need, and Mr. Alaska, correct me on this, but we'll need a, basically a motion and a second for the ordinance. And then at that point, I'd also like to have a motion to dispense of the reading. So it's quite a long ordinance and we do have it posted on our website. So should I start with the motion and the second first? Is that correct?
Motion and second for first reading, and then a motion to dispense with the full reading and to do the first reading by title only.
Okay. Do I have a motion to introduce this ordinance?
So moved.
So Ms.
Second.
Leary introduces her ordinance. I have a second.
Second.
A second for Mr. Smith. Okay. At this point, do I have a motion to dispense with the first reading and go by a reading of title only? We'll need to vote on that.
So moved.
So motion and a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of dispensing with the first reading indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So that passes, and then I will just read then. So we basically have had a first, a motion and a second, and that is for ordinance number 531, an ordinance to amend sections 141-6 and 141-19, the city code relating to vacant and dangerous buildings.
Madam President, if I may also add that this is just a first reading. There'll be a public hearing on this, of course, where it can be discussed in detail. And I think Kim will have it posted on the city website in full. So anybody can review it that way as well.
That's correct. It will show the clean copy and also the revisions, so people can clearly see what the changes are, and that will be okay at this point. That is the last item on the agenda. Are there any other things that council would like to bring up before we close?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, okay.
Second.
So Mr. Smith, okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Thanks, everybody, and thanks to the
Thank you.
attendees.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.